Okay, this is the first video I'm going to be doing where I'm actually talking versus just having music in the background or doing a speed paint. Just to try something a little different, mix it up a little bit. What I have here is an actual bleach drawing I did a while back. I basically just did a resketch of it, and I want to do some line art because, to be perfectly honest with you, line art is my favorite part of drawing. Like, I literally will spend all day doing inking. It's the part that I literally burn through my sketches just to try to do really clean or really cool line art, just because I have fun with it. So I'll be just kind of talking randomly and kind of going through what I'm going through with this drawing. So, I mean, personally, bleach drawings for me are some of the hardest ones to do, hardest ones to emulate, because I think Tite Kubo, which is I believe is how you pronounce his name, for me anyways, I always felt like he has a very specific style, that for me, I guess, is just hard to emulate. Like the way he draws faces or eyes are just very weirdly specific. In the same way that like Dragon Ball Z, that style is specific, but in a more centralized way. If that makes any sense, I guess I don't really know how to explain it myself. It's just something I've always struggled with. But this is one of my more successful Ichigo drawings that took me forever to do. And I just lowered the opacity on the sketch here, and you can always raise that in Procreate. That's another thing I'm using Procreate. I've always used Procreate. I started drawing a couple years ago, and this was recommended to me by a friend for drawing, and I basically just never looked back. I mean, I've tried other things too. I tried a Wacom tablet a while ago. Wasn't a fan, mostly because it was one of those tablets where you can't see the screen, and I'm so used to seeing that, it's just an awkward way to draw for me, and I just wasn't really into it. So I've kind of since gone back to using this. Anyway, I'm going to lower the opacity again here to kind of make that drawing invisible. You can still see most of it. But let's get started. I also use a pen called Perfect Inker. I use two different ones, or I've used two different ones in the past. Perfect Inker is the one I use now because if you kind of look at it close up, to me it has a very much like a kind of a brush vibe where it's like not a super clean line. It's kind of rigidy, has holes in it. To me, it just kind of emulates the look of an actual real, like ink. I don't know. I just like it. The other one I use with some success, and they're very similar in style, is Smooth Manga, which both of these I was able to get or purchase through Procreate's website through somebody who made them. But this, not like Perfect Inker, except to me it's just a bit smoother, less pixely. I guess for me, the reason I go with the other one is that the other one looks less digital and more real at the end of the day. Not a huge deal. Either one will work fine. Again, I'm just using Perfect Inker because that's what I prefer. Let's get started. Now, the key to doing clean lines, well, one of the keys, there are going to be many keys, is not really trying to do all, like one line at once. So, just an example. I always have trouble doing this curve in the face here, kind of in this area here, because to me it's just kind of an awkward thing to do in one shot. I always kind of just am off a little bit, or it's a little wide, and I just do that like 100 times, and just still keep getting it wrong. So what I usually do is get all the basic line artwork down, and then just adjust or fix that line. So instead of doing one big curve here, I'll do the small parts. Do a little curve here, and don't be afraid to go back and adjust. And if you get rid of the actual drawing behind it, you'll have those not connected lines, which you will go back later and connect, but not right now. And not every line has to be perfect. As you can see, I kind of missed the mark over here. Not a big deal. And you'll notice, and I'm not traditionally trained to do art. So I've learned on my iPad and kind of never look back. But I rotate my screen a lot because I can. One thing I learned from a YouTube video a while back is most of the time, most people have a natural way of drawing, a natural kind of what they're comfortable with. I've noticed for me, depending on where I'm drawing, I tend to be my stroke going in this direction or this direction is pretty natural for me. So, like doing that line, fairly natural, or turning it around and doing this line, fairly natural. But if I try to do that same line away from me, where I'm going in this direction. It's just, to me, just not as natural. I can do it, I just don't like it as much. Yeah, it just looks a lot more rigid there. I was taught a long time ago is go with what you're comfortable with. You know, if you're trained or you're in art school, they're going to want you to do things a certain way. I've sort of afforded that benefit of ignoring that and just building terrible habits. So what I like to do in any sort of line art, though, is go in and throw in the general lines, connect everything later, and then add different line widths and just some dynamics with the actual lines in general. I'll show you what I mean in a little bit here. And again, not every line has to be perfect. It genuinely doesn't need to be perfect the first time. You can always go back and edit it. That's not perfect in the slightest. Or spend as much time as you need trying to get it to the perfection level that you are comfortable with. No big deal. No one's gonna judge you. Well, I mean, I guess people will judge you, but you don't have to care either. Care about what matters. That's what I think. It's good. And what I mean by care about what matters is I have a friend who constantly judges me, but it all comes from a place of, you know, just love, wanting me to improve. She's the one I go to a lot when especially when I was first learning to draw. She is artistically inclined and super focused on detail. And if I have anything wrong, even if I think it's the best drawing in the world, she will tear it apart. And while, you know, getting criticism is tough, you always feel personally attacked. But if you take a step back, a lot of times you might not be ready to receive that criticism at the time, which I am not always ready to receive at all. It is something that you can take into heart later and work on fixing. Or just be conscious of the next time you go to draw, and little by little you get better. I was always terrible at drawing when I was a kid. I was really into anime, really into Dragon Ball Z was my first love. Which is funny because when I first started drawing, that's the first thing I learned to draw was Dragon Ball Z characters. But I remember when I was a kid, like 12, 13, middle school, I really wanted to learn how to draw DBZ characters. And I remember just trying everything and just not being very good at it. So I gave it up. Until I was 25, 24, 25, I don't remember. 25? 26 maybe? My wife bought me an iPad Pro, with actually this exact iPad Pro for my birthday, and she asked if I wanted the Apple Pencil. Started looking into it and thought it was kind of cool. I wasn't an artist by any means, and we figured out, you know what? I've always wanted to learn to draw. I still thoroughly enjoy anime. Let's give it a go. And I spent the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, YouTube videos, tutorials, drawing daily, absorbing whatever I can. And I still think I have a long way to go, whereas other people might think that I am very good, whatever. There's a lot that I can't do that I want to do in terms of just skill and ability. And, you know, you always grow. A couple of pointers with doing like hair, and these are general rules. You want to go lighter, so when I actually do the rest of the inking, I'm going to probably thicken the clothing, the face a bit. The hair I'm going to keep a little bit lighter. You also, at least for me, I don't know if this is an actual rule, is I tend to go lighter at the tip of the head and then darker as you go in. So see how that kind of like, it's a really thin point and it gets darker as you go. Again, I don't know if that's a rule. I think when I was first learning, somebody recommended that to me and it just became a habit, I guess. I also tend to go back and just add more line width when two lines intersect a lot. So like where the tips are intersecting. And you can go back to and adjust things like erase little follicles here and there. Ichigo here has very pointy, rebellious hair. If I sound stuffy, by the way, it's because it's allergy season. And what I mean by allergy season is that it's always allergy season. There's always a season for allergies: winter, spring, summer. Summer allergies are here. Fall allergies are here. Death allergies are here. You get it. Well, not boring you. Oh, another thing I do, and this is just more of a personal preference of stupidity on my part, is so something that I like about artists and different ones, because it's another thing, if you're into drawing, you will just look at other people's drawings all day and compare and hate yourself and say, why aren't I as good? But a lot of things I've noticed over time is I like the imperfections in people's art, and I don't mean like the glaring mistakes, you know, when two things are not symmetrical or whatever. What I mean is, you know, like where lines aren't perfect, you know, like somebody might do a curve, whatever. Instead of it being like a perfectly smooth curve, you might see some different variations in the line, you know, stuff like that, where it's not an imperfect thing. One of the things I've grown accustomed to doing, and it's not in every hair strand, but I will leave open spaces, like how you kind of see I did here and here and here and here. And what I'll do is I'll erase part of the hair, make it a little bit wider of a gap, and then I will finish the strand here, but leave that part between the two follicles open. I don't know why I do it. I just kind of like that look of empty space where it's the suggestion of the line and it's not really there. I do it in a couple different ways, but I just enjoy doing it. It's just a personal preference of mine. Feel free to not do that. No judgments here. Another thing I thoroughly believe in, and I don't know if this is necessarily true for artists that draw or paint in a physical media, but on digital, part of good lines is a confident and quick stroke. And what I mean by that here is what I used to do a lot when I first started to draw was, let's say I wanted to do a line, to like do this line here. See how I'm kind of, see how, like when I first did it, I just did a line like that, a line like that, and kind of left it. It was really, really quick, right? What I used to do was one or two things. I'd either do small strokes, or I'm just constantly just doing that. Which, if you do it right, a messy line art can look nice. I actually really jealous of that style a lot. However, it looks messy when you just do it like that, and looks you look like you're very unsure of yourself when you're drawing. The other thing I do, or would try, would be just doing the one line in one motion, but doing it super slowly. So you would do that, and you would get all these like bumps and you know, where it's still the same thing, very unconfident line. What I recommend is quick strokes. So one thing I do obviously is keep open spaces, and you're going to connect those later and fill in the gaps. But also do lines very quickly, because that line will look smooth and easy and flow very nicely, and you don't have any issues, and it just looks nicer. And again, you don't have to worry about it, because you have the beauty of, if I don't like a line, if I just fuck up a line, I hit the back button and it's gone. Unless a freak accident happens and it's stuck there forever. But that won't always happen. Ichigo. Bleach was one of the first animes that I remember really loving. So I said, what was it? Freaking Dragon Ball Z. One of my first loves. But that was like a show that I watched when I didn't realize it was anime. You know, I was a kid. You just think they're cartoons. Another one I remember watching a lot and which is funny because I vaguely don't remember the show that much, but I remember really enjoying it when I was out. Was Tenchi in Tokyo, and I think I vaguely watched some of the original Tenchi movie. However, I for some reason got really into Tenchi in Tokyo when it came out because I really liked the one character, Sakia, I think it was. His love interest. Never really finished the series, but I remember just really liking that character. And you will notice I'm doing most of these lines very quickly. And you can just go back and edit them later. Whatever. Should adjust the pen width here, but I'm being lazy. And you'll get better too. Like, you see me kind of filling in parts of the lines as I go, and you'll usually just get a feel for that over time. Everything just takes practice. And who needs a perfect line anyways, right? So much hair. Because he is fabulous. And some of the stuff you'll just hit the back button right away when you make a mistake. Other stuff you'll go back in and fix. So like these little tips here, well, I'll go back in and just kind of tighten them up. Erase the excess. And what's funny about doing digital art, because I draw fairly large pictures, 11 by 17, which is 11 inch by 17 inch height-wise and width, is those little mistakes, when you zoom out, most people aren't going to really notice that. But as an artist, you will be obsessed with those little mistakes, and it will ruin a drawing for your enjoyment of a drawing more than anything else. I also don't know when you get confident with your own art. I don't know any person I've had who draws is always not like. I have friends who've gone to art school, or taken art in college or whatever, and they draw, and I'll share my stuff and they'll love it, and they'll share their stuff and I'll love it, and if we talk to each other, we both creep on the other person's work because we think we suck and we think they're amazing, and we're jealous of their ability and skill. And I've seen that happen hundreds of times, just the same thing over and over again. I don't know when you gain that confidence with your work, where you're like, yeah, I'm the boss. I don't know if that ever actually happens, honestly. I have no frame of reference. I'm assuming at some point somebody out there is super confident in their work and will flaunt it. As it is, I barely like sharing my stuff on YouTube here, and that's mostly because I think I'm trash. So I generally do fan art and reproductions of like anime stuff. I've sold at conventions. Well, to be fair, I've sold at one convention. It's a local one called Anime Milwaukee. Sold there like 2 years ago. For my first experience, I actually liked it. It was kind of pricey the first time because not only am I buying, like, I didn't have my own printer. I didn't know how much to print. So I overpaid a bit for printing my stuff initially because I overbought how much art I needed. And then you're also paying for the table. You're paying for the supplies to hang your art. I mean, for my first convention, compared to some people I've heard of, I aimed it as a success. I still netted about $350 in profit for about 2.5 days of work. Kind of nerve-wracking because you're literally sitting at a table and just watching people judge you all day. But anyway, so yeah, I sold at a convention one time. I sell some of my fan art and reproductions on Etsy on a website called Displate. Displate, if you haven't been on, it's a little pricey, and from an artist's perspective, they don't pay you a lot in commission. So let's say I sell something for like $40 on there, I might see $5 of that, $6 on a good day. But they do these really neat metal plates. Displate sells these metal plates of your artwork that hang magnetically on the wall, which I think is pretty cool. Like I said, they're a little pricey as well. Like a piece of art there I'm not exactly sure the size. Just under 11 by 17, I think. They sell for about $44, and they sell a few different sizes now. They didn't when I originally started selling on there, but they sell some bigger sizes too, for in the $100 range and a $60 range. But just for one piece of art, I think that kind of adds up. But hey, it works. I recently started selling at a local anime shop. I had reached out to them a year ago and about selling my fan art and reproductions and stuff, and they were interested, but ultimately couldn't do it because they didn't have enough space. They moved to a different location, and they now had room, so I contacted them again, and we worked something out where I'm selling. They're hosting my art, and I'm selling it there, and they basically, well, they sell it for me, and I get about a 40% commission for anything sold, which I think is fair. I could have gone a little higher, but it's my first partnership with something like that, and I wanted them to feel like they were getting the good end of the deal. And again, I just have to bring over some of my drawings when they sell them, so I'm not really doing much in my way. It's not like I'm going there every week and trying to peddle the stuff myself. I thought it was a good deal. Oh, I forgot what I was saying. I think I was talking about selling at that anime shop, but yeah, they are providing all the overhead. I'm just bringing the art I sell framed and unframed. I literally just started selling it just before Christmas, so I've been selling that for under a month, like 15, 16, 17 days, whatever. 4 to 5 drawings so far for about $25 a piece. I'm fairly proud of that. It's not the most profit ever, but again, it's passive profit. I can live with that. Almost done with the outside basic line art, and you can always get rid of the sketch underneath to kind of see how you're doing there. I think I'm doing okay. A lot of people I've noticed either go for super realistic eyes or super generic eyes, where it's like you got the whole thing here, the whole outline, and you do like one little guy there to indicate the ear, whatever, maybe something like that. I tend to go for somewhere in the middle, where it's somewhat detailed, but also there's no mistaking that it's still a cartoony ear. Mostly because I've never really studied ear anatomy, and I have enough where you can tell it's an ear, you can tell that it has quite a bit of detail. But if you really held my ear up to scrutiny, you'd probably either see flaws or just point out that, hey, it's missing really important parts here, dude. One of the few things I don't care about. Another cool thing with Procreate, by the way, if you have a connecting line, so this is all connected in one big old line here, you can do a kind of a paint bucket dealio here, where you drag this little black circle here. Now right here you see in the corner. You drag it in, and it fills it in, not perfectly, so like a lot of times with points, you're going to have holes. So like right here, you kind of see a big old hole there, which you have to kind of color in. You'll notice more when I start doing like the hair tips and stuff. I was considering doing this as like a speed draw and throwing it up, but I don't know. I decided just to talk normal when I'm doing stuff. Undecided if that's a good or bad thing. Because again, this is the first time I'm doing it. No frame of reference for success here. Hopefully you guys like this, but we will. It's not like I have many people watch my videos. This is like a pretty new, small channel. But hopefully one day there will be hundreds, maybe dozens, possibly just 2 or 3 of you watching these videos and enjoying them. Who knows? Now I'm kind of adding in the areas of shading that I kind of pre-outlined here. Fill them in later. I'm just going to do black for the shading. I want this to be a very simple where it's mostly just inking, no color. I might color the eyes. Oh man, I just didn't finish his hair earlier, huh? I tend to not do things in any particular order, which leads me to forgetting sometimes to do things. I think I said at the beginning of this video, this is my first time doing an audio, which is only technically true. And the reason I say that is because I did an inking of this exact same drawing yesterday, but I was trying to do it directly through Procreate. They have this neat little button here, video, and you can do a start live broadcast, which uploads it directly to YouTube. It uploads like 3 seconds of video and nothing else. And I thought they've updated that, maybe fixed it, but I guess that was wrong. Wasted a solid 45 minutes of my life dubbing a stupid video that no one got to enjoy. But on the flip side, like I said earlier, I really thoroughly enjoy doing inking, and I like this drawing overall, so no harm, no foul, I guess. Boop. So as you guys see what I mean about the fill in there, like there's a hole here and a hole here. In the grand scheme of things, when you zoom out, you're not even going to notice. Maybe if you print it, you might notice if you're being really finicky, but I never really give it a chance. I will always go back and kind of fix those for the most part, unless I just genuinely don't see them. You know, for the first year and a half when I used Procreate, I didn't know you could fill in areas. So I'd have to go into each one and color and hope I didn't go over the lines, because I also tried doing things a lot on one layer, which you don't need to. They give you a lot of tools not to do that. Masking and other stuff, I just never really got into it. I'm currently doing everything on one layer right now, so don't really learn from me here. Please do as I say, not as I do. I think I'd be totally screwed if I did things not digitally, because I make a lot of little mistakes, and as much as there's big arguments out there for digital versus not digital, I think not digital has afforded me a platform in which I can make constant mistakes and fix them. And I'm not saying you can't do that with traditional art, especially during the sketching stage, but especially when you're inking, it's a lot harder to do. You might be starting over the inking process several times before you get right what you want to get right. Whereas this, make one minor mistake, as long as I catch it right away, I can go back and rectify that before I move on to the next step. And you don't always have that ability with traditional art. Again, that's not me saying anything positive or negative about either one. They both have their positives, they both have their negatives, they both have pitfalls and challenges, but I think I'm blessed with being able to work with a digital medium here. So with the job that I do, I go into people's houses. Okay, when I say that, I sound like a robber. I go into people's houses, work for a mobile company, mobile in terms of cell phones. And what we do essentially is help people set up their online applications, network stuff, and then try to also maybe sell them more stuff, which is the name of the game. On paper we don't say that, but in real life we do. I work in a fairly big city, and you get to go to some really gross, grimy houses. I went to one today where this dude had an amazing, really nice, not alarm system, but like a lock, essentially, for his home. It was made by Samsung, and it looked almost like a cell phone in the front of his house that you have to like either put in a password to unlock, or you can lock it from the inside, or use your phones to do. It looked really cool, really high tech. But I go in this house, and this dude's house is just grimy. Like, the carpet Like, has anyone heard like a carpet that had mold on it or like water spilled and just festered underneath something and it just turned black? Like, they had a carpet that at one point was like a soft, supple carpet. Supple, right word for a carpet, I don't know. But it had its fur, like it was a fluffy carpet. You could tell that because the outside edges were also fluffy. But the main part of the carpet was just flat black, like it had been wet hundreds of times and just stomped on by people. And I don't know, it was just disgusting. And not all houses I go to are like that, but it was gross. There's really no anecdote there. I just wanted you guys to share in my surprise. You see how I'm not even trying to make this like a smooth circular line? Partly I don't care. Partly I don't think it's important to the overall aesthetic of the drawing. Or maybe it is. Maybe, like I said earlier, an imperfect line gives a drawing character that otherwise might not be there. Or I'm all bullshit and just lazy. Who knows? Sorry, I'm just doing the eyes here. The eyes for me, when it comes to bleachy things from Tite Kubo, are some of the hardest things to do because they're the ones that his eyes have the most personality. A lot of different artists, you know, like especially with anime these days, I feel like a lot of anime is kind of a paint by numbers studio kind of, you know, looking the same vibe, same look, and that's true of any, not just these days, but any era of anime. You know, like for me, 80s anime, they have these really aggressive noses and jaw lines, and characters to me were just less feminine. And now as time goes on, and I'm not saying anything negative against the art industry or anime at all, I just feel like, you know, there's less details with noses, with just general, like, you'll see a lot of girlish anime where their nose will just be like a little nub, like that, and that's the nose. Features are softer, more feminine. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I think if you start with something like that as a baseline, or start with specific styles as a baseline, it'll be harder to emulate other people. Nor, I mean, I guess, and you shouldn't feel pressured to emulate anybody, because at the end of the day, you want your own style. The coveted style people are always seeking. I want my own style. I've seen two different ways of going about it. Is people basically copying other styles until they find what they're suitable with, what they like. When I say copy, I don't mean like directly one for one, but like you, let's say you really got into anime for Bleach or Naruto or whatever, like a lot of people tend to emulate that, or emulate those major styles. And you know, some people argued against that. I've seen some people say that that's a detriment to finding your own style. Other people would say, you know, do that until you find your own style. So I'm always of the camp of everyone learns differently. So I think those people that say, oh, don't emulate because it'll cripple you, and those people that say emulate all you want because you're still searching for your style and finding what works for you, I think both those people learn differently. And what works for one of them may not work for the other. I tend to be an adopter. I tend to look at other styles, find things that I like in other styles, and try to adopt that. And then my style might be in like an amalgamation, kind of an end result of my upbringing in the art world, I guess. I don't know. Or I might get obsessed with a certain style or look or aesthetic for a while, and then later on get obsessed with something else and move on from that. But I'm like a kid, like in that same way when you learn something new for the first time, you want to show the world, you know? So let's say I learn a new way of drawing noses. My next 8 drawings might have similar noses to that style, because I'm just super pumped about it. Well, I guess I can adjust that. Let me see. If not, I'll just get rid of it if I don't like it. Boop and boop. Yeah, I don't like it. I just kind of want to get an impression of the upper lip here. I'm going to adjust that later. Well, we'll see. May move it towards the center more. I want to curl this up more too. Really laying that he's kind of smirking. Normally I put a little more detail in the neck, but I also knew that I was going to be hollowing this out with just shading for the most part, so I kind of didn't. Do a hole there, gotta fix it, bam. Better. I'm almost done with the basic lines that I'm looking to do here, and I will go back in and thicken and make it look prettier, etc., etc. Toad's just missed a pupil over here, apparently. Okay. Procreate does this shape tool now, where if you do like a circle, it'll create that circle for you. Triangle, square, something like that. It kind of, if you hold that shape, it'll refine it for you. It's kind of nice. It does make doing pupils a little bit easier. Okay, so now the basic artwork is done, basic line art dunsies, and I can go back in and start kind of refining some of the lines, which this one doesn't need too much. The one I'm going to make his little kimono just straight up black here, so I don't think I left any empty spaces there. Boom, I can just get that in. What I would recommend doing actually is adding some lighting. I'm not the greatest at adding lighting, but what I do is I will fill in an area and then erase parts where I think would be lit up or have some light hitting it, stuff like that. Easiest way for me is I just duplicate the line art layer. Now I have two pieces of the same line art. Go to the bottom one, fill it in. Oh, sorry about that. I'm cooking dinner, so I have a few minutes here. I forgot what I was talking about. Just try filling the lines now. When I fill in the kimono, I don't want there to be any gaps, which I probably should have done all in one, but whatever. And oh yeah, I was talking about lighting. I was going to fill in everything, and then what I'll do is go into the other layer, the original layer, the old layer, and kind of lighten it up so you can kind of see the outline. Then let's say I want to add a little bit of lighting here and there, whatever. I will go in, especially if I'm just doing black and white, and just erase parts of the inking. So I want to add some in the corner here as well. Ba-bam. Just to give it some nice classy look to it. I'll do it that way. Sorry, Procreate does that thing where it flips every once in a while. Sorry, I'm just working on closing some of these gaps here, because when I go to fill in, if there's any empty space, it will just try to ink the entire drawing, and I don't want that. I think that's everything. Let's find out. Bam. Nope. Missed a gap. Somewhere. Oh, right there. Better. Over here. And that just kind of shows there's lighting up there in the corner. And then you can go back up and redarken it. And that adds a little bit of just dimension, so it's not like a flat shape. Another thing I do for different types of shading is I always want this side to be a little darker on this side of his little strap here. So I'm going to add just some lines. You could just do straight lines as well. Bam. 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 And it's not traditional art, so they actually, if you hold the line, it'll just create a straight line for you. And it makes it a lot easier, a lot faster. Now that kind of looks a little different. And then, like I said, I'll go back in and just think of some of the lines. So, like where these lines intersect, I do one of two things. I'll either erase. I can just merge those, make my life easier. Erase, so you have less confusion there. Or you can go in and add something there. It gives it a little bit of more like shadowing by there. Stands out a little more. Honestly, I find that either one works pretty well. Just go, it looks good. So like for over here, just a little bit extra here. Maybe where these connect here on the other side, just kind of darken that line up so it stands out more. This one here, I'll just erase. My wife just texted me because she's angry about work. She does not like work, that one. Although, I mean, if I ever had a choice between working and not working, it's not working every time. I'm making some fried rice for dinner with some Chinese barbecue pork. Not sure how to pronounce it, but it's a recipe I found online called char siu, which is basically pork roast made with Chinese 5-spice, honey, soy sauce, seasoning called hoisin, some red dye, baked for about an hour and 20 minutes. I chop it up, put it into the barbecue pork fried rice, and it's amazing. So good. I just recently, I've made fried rice for a while, but I've recently started adding the barbecue pork, and I love it. So sorry, another thing I do is, like I think I mentioned this earlier, when two lines intersect, I tend to add a little more ink. So like where the cheek line meets here and the hair follicle line meets here, I'll kind of add a little bit of ink, kind of all the ends here. Just gives it something to look at. There was a guy on the Procreate website a while back that was saying, hey, when I try to do line art, it's really boring. But when you actually look at his line art that he's trying to do, it's super basic. All the lines are the same width, all the lines are the same thickness, and just look all the same. However, I find that just adding a little bit of extra ink in corners, just general thickness and different dimensions. So for instance, like the chin area here, I might add a little bit more ink just at the bottom, just to kind of emphasize that chin a little bit more so it stands out. Oops. It makes it look a little less boring. And I think ultimately that's what that kid was kind of looking for, was my line art is boring. How do I spruce it up? The lines themselves that he was doing were actually very clean, had no personality. And like I said, you don't feel the need to connect every line. I'm just doing it for the face just because I feel like that just kind of makes sense. But for hair, for the mouth area like that, I kind of left open right here. It's just a suggestion of a finish line, but not necessarily the actual finish line, which is fine. Fucked up here. This is supposed to be kind of like the eyelidy area. Just going back and fixing that. Oops. Or making it worse. Whatevs. It's a process, right? That's all art is a fucking process. And hey, who knows? When you're done with a drawing, you may hate everything about it, and you may just end up scrapping the whole thing, which, you know what? There's no shame in that. Sometimes, honestly, some of the best drawings I've done are when I spend an entire day trying to do that very drawing and just failing miserably at it. You take a day, take a breather, come back the next day, and you just have it. You're not going to wake up every day and just have the gift, have the ability to do what you want to do. Obviously, practice and skill will allow you to take some of the days where you don't have your best work in you and turn it into a good day, and you can push through. But there are some days where you're just going to try everything in your power to get your drawings done, get it all done. You have a vision in your head, and you just can't get it done. And there's no shame in that. I mean, unless you're already late at the deadline, there might be a little shame in that. I'm just filling in areas that I think look a little weak. You get it. Getting in some gaps. I think this one I'm just going to finish the hair tip. This one I might lengthen a little bit here. And then just leave that suggestion of a finished line, even widen that gap a little bit more. It stand out a bit. Add some extra line weight in this corner here. And these aren't things that you have to do. I think the line art looks fairly okay without it. But if I had a style, I would say it comes out most in my inking as far as just how I approach it. And it comes down to those little lines where you add extra line width that I think for me, they stand out to me as a difference maker. Like I said, they might not to you, and overall they might not matter in the grand scheme of things, but hey, it's what I like. And I'll continue to do them until I see a reason not to, which might be really soon, who knows. Boop. And this was just an aggressive kind of eyelid over here. I just remember drawing is kind of liking it. Standing out with some thickness. We're going to add a little thickness to this one as well. My boss is a bit of a pusher. And he's going to be doing some live Twitch streaming as a gamer. And he asked me about my microphone because I mentioned to him one day that, hey, if you need a microphone to borrow, I have one. And it works really well. It's called the Blue Yeti. There's another thing I've tried in the past is a YouTube channel for movie reviews. I love movies. I actually had a movie review website for a long time. I say a long time, like a year. I kind of took on too much with that project a bit and ended up just dumping it entirely because it just became overwhelming. But I ran it for about a year, did movie reviews initially, and then other things. I also did movie news. I would upload articles daily, but I just got tired of it. But yeah, I had a microphone because I started doing YouTube, like actual YouTube video reviews. I still have a few up on YouTube, but I got a lot of copyright strikes. They were very strict back then. I think they probably still are now, but I just don't care as much. And I'm talking on a YouTube video versus talking about movies and showing images of those movies, whatever. But I just kind of lost the passion for it, you know. You know. You get it. Sorry, I'm just wanting to see if I want that pupil to be larger or not. Meh. Get rid of that. I might just add some stuff to the eyes. This may look weird. I'm just adding a little bit of kind of dynamic look to the eyes. It's not really shading or coloring. It's a little bit of shading, really, is ultimately what I'm doing. But I'm adding some line to the eyes. But for me, they just give them like an added dimension, added look. You just don't really get without them there. The key to doing it this way too is kind of doing the exact same angle. I made the mistake in the past of like, you know, I'll do this eye, these lines in this direction. When I go over to this eye over here, I'm doing them in this direction. You know, where it's a little more flat. Make sure you're going in the same direction with both so they look uniform. Where's that orange? So I went a layer underneath and I'm adding some color to the eyes. I'm not filling them in entirely. This is another one of those things where you're just adding the impression of total color. And it's something you can actually do with a lot of drawings, where if you don't want to color in completely, you can just add a little bit of coloring where lines intersect. I might not do this with the whole hair. I just want to see what it looks like, because I didn't do this last time I did this drawing. I kept the hair just white. Yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of doing the opposite of when I draw the hair, where I'm going, instead of going thicker towards the dome, where you're going from where it's thin away and then thicker towards, I'm going thicker towards, thinner towards, thicker away. Because what I'm doing is where the points of the tips of the hair intersect, just adding some color. And like I said, for some reason this technique I like, but depending on how I color the other drawings or the rest of like full drawings, it doesn't always work. This tends to work more when you have a drawing you're doing very few colors. So in this one, obviously, I'm doing very few colors. I'm doing black, white, and orange. And it's mostly black and white space. I think the reason that really works in a lot of drawings like that is because you're emphasizing those colors. I might actually add a little bit more, especially since I drew him with a lot of his hair going off the page. But yeah, the reason I think it works is when there's less color is what you're doing is sort of isolating those colors that do stand out. And who knows, when I do all the hair like this, I might not like it when I zoom out. But that's the beauty of digital. Nothing is permanent in this world of digital art. You can just go back and erase it. Like so. As you can see, kind of for the hair that I'm keeping on the page, I'm doing a bit more of the inking, meaning it more of the tip. Whereas the hair that's going off the page, I'm kind of trying to cover in with a little more ink because you're not seeing the rest of that hair kind of leave the page. Another thing I've seen a lot of people do is you won't color the inside, but maybe color the outside. So what I'm doing there, and I'll erase this because I'm going to do the inside, is you're kind of coloring the outline and leaving the inside of the drawing white or black or whatever. But that's basically showing that, hey, like this part is orange. So as an example like that. But then you would do that for the rest of the drawing, or at least the rest of the hair. Basically, both kind of do the same thing where they isolate that color and make that color specifically stand out. I might add more orange to the eyes, just make those stand out. I might color those fully, especially now that I'm coloring the hair a little bit more. I feel like the eyes stand out less, so I might add either more to the bottom or just color in the whole eyes there. don't know what music I'm going to add to the background. Part of the issue with adding music to YouTube is if you're not going through their music-free library or making sure you have royalty-free music, you will get copyrighted striked, which, you know, isn't that big of a deal for a small channel. But let's say for some reason this channel blows up to be a big channel at some point. I either need to re-upload those videos I did before that have gotten strikes, or whoever owned that music all of a sudden gets all the monetization, even though a good chunk of the content is not the music. The music is the background part. And you know, some people might watch speed paints for the music, but I think it just adds to the entertainment value. But really what you're there for is the actual speed paint itself. But in legal eyes, the owner of that music should get something. Whatever, you know. Like I said, this isn't a big channel. I don't think it ever will be a big channel. If it is, it'll be purely luck. Not anything that I'm really doing to affect that outcome. But no big deal. I'm hoping this comes out well, because I am using my iPad, but I'm also using QuickTime on the iPad as well as my MacBook. I have my iPad plugged into my MacBook, and QuickTime is actually recording the screen using a microphone I plugged into it as well for the audio. But I don't know the quality of this until I'm done, huh? I want to see what that looks like fully outlined versus colored in. I don't like it colored in, but I'm also in that space where I don't like it fully outlined, so what I'll do is probably leave it there. Maybe a little more color there. Color there. What if I add some under the pupil, if that looks nice too? Yeah, I don't like it under the pupil. And you can always throw in a little bit of gray as well. I'm not really going to, but I will add some orange more to the tips there. But like, for instance here, adding gray to kind of shadow this area. Maybe shadow the underneath here as well, to just give it some depth, show that there's some depth there. It's not just a flat surface. Kind of gives it a more three-dimensional look to it. I do want to add this other little eye sag here. For uniformity. Make sure it also matches what I'm going for looks-wise. And done. I also want to connect this line here because it just looks kind of random without. Maybe thicken it a little bit. And we are just about done here, folks. If you have any questions, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you didn't, I apologize. Leave some comments, let me know whether you did or whether you didn't, really. I know it's kind of a long video. Been doing this for, what, over an hour now? But I think some people like to see the process of things. And I imagine somebody out there will enjoy this video. Crying about my life. Because I'm a little bitch about things. I mean, it's not going to be rock concert in here. You're going to hear me talking either way. However, maybe you can tune me out a little bit. Who knows? But if you learn one thing here, it's that maybe perfection isn't key, and the beauty of drawings or inking or art in general can often be in someone's mistakes, someone's flaws, someone's personal aesthetic. Now, what I don't want you to take away from me saying that is just when somebody criticizes you, just say, hey, that's my style. I've done that, especially when I first started drawing, when you're really defensive over your own work. And honestly, all that does is give you an excuse to not try to learn, you know? To just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting you to get better. A lot of people don't get better. Hopefully you do. But when I first started drawing, whenever my friends or friend would ridicule me, I'd be like, well, it's an anime style. That's why it looks that way. That's why the eyes are in the wrong place. That's why the eyes are too big, etc. In some ways, there's some exaggeration there, but you want to get the anatomy at least close to right, or else it's going to just look off. So. But yeah, I hope you guys overall enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a little bit of something, but this was just me doing an inking of Ichigo from Bleach. Feel free to subscribe if you want to. If not, no big deal. No hard feelings. But hopefully you come back for some more, and hopefully I do more. Take it easy.